Okay, good morning, everybody. My name is Frank Gray. If we've
Good
not
morning.
had the pleasure of meeting face to face, and it's my pleasure today to lead you through part two in what is a foundational class in what we teach at Abbey Realty. The entire series is called 1 Year Six Figures, and today's class specifically is entitled Making the Sausage. Now, if that doesn't sound appealing, uh, it's because this is the behind the scenes work. This is the nitty gritty, dull, hard work that it takes to be successful in real estate. Last week, or in part one, we talked about identifying the numbers in your numbers game, the metrics of your business, your financial requirement, average sale price, average commission rate, average commission. From all of that, we determined your transaction benchmark. In other words, how many closings that you have to do in the next 12 months to meet your financial requirement. Once we have those numbers, we're prepared to take the next step, which is what we're doing today. We're going to talk about setting yourself up for success in 7 critical steps. After today, we'll get into the specific sources of business and the strategies that we employ within each one of those sources to extract the required number of transactions. But for today, we're going to continue our emphasis on the setup. So I'm going to mute everybody very quickly, make sure we're going to let Robert in to our meeting, and let's get into our content portion for today. So, would we agree that we all like sausage? All right, Hunter, I appreciate that affirmation. We like sausage on our pizza, sausage in our breakfast tacos, sausage next to those scrambled eggs. It's one of the most delightful, flavorful meats that God ever put upon this good earth. However, what we often don't think about is what it takes for that sausage to end up on our plate. The farmer's got to raise the pigs, feed the pigs, care for the pigs, vaccinate the pigs. Then they go to I hate to say it, a slaughterhouse, and they go through a process there. And what comes out the other end is very, very delightful. But we don't often think about, and we certainly don't want to be involved in the process of making sausage. And I'll tell you, I'm going to turn 60 this month, and I have never met anybody in my life who actually makes their own sausage. I would think that would be a fairly gruesome process. Now, my grandpa did slaughter his own pigs, but I'm not sure that I would ever want to participate in that process. So we love the end result. That's the point I'm making. But we don't necessarily want to be part of the process of getting there. It is very similar in real estate. Making the sausage is a figure of speech that means the dull and sometimes dirty work that goes with making something good. And in our business, you often hear this process described as the grind. Have you ever heard anybody say, I'm just going to grind it out today? Or I'm going into the grind. I'm going to do a week-long grind. What they mean by that is I'm just going to put my head down and I'm going to do the hard, dull work to grow my business. And since sausage is made by grinding, those two expressions really mean the same thing. So when you hear somebody talk about the grind or grinding, that's what they mean. They're going to put their head down and do the hard work that nobody wants to do. And by the way, early on in my life and career, I heard the expression that the difference between successful people and unsuccessful people is quite simple. Successful people do the things that unsuccessful people are unwilling to do. We all want the sausage, few want the process. Well, the grind is about the process. So, what is the goal in real estate sales? What's that sausage on our plate that we're looking for? Most of us would agree it's listings, recognition, it's commissions, it's funding our aspirations and the life of our dreams. I mean, this is what we got into real estate for. And yes, it is to help people. I never want to lose sight of the service aspect of our business. But let's be honest, This is the career path we've chosen to fund our lives, to pay our bills and fund our aspirations. This is a career choice. And if this is the career path that we've chosen, the means that we have chosen to fund the life we want to live, doesn't it make sense that we should maximize the income opportunity on the path that we've chosen? I mean, if we can be in this business and make $20,000 a year or make $200,000 a year, doesn't it make sense? In fact, I would say, don't we even have a moral obligation to those who depend upon us to maximize the efficiency and the effectiveness of the hours that we devote to this career? If we're going to have to be away from our family and the things that we love, doesn't it make sense to make it extremely worthwhile? That's the goal. Now, how do we get there? That's the grind. That's the late nights. That's the tedious work. That's when everybody else is just checking out and watching television. We're working on our database, or we're putting together a marketing campaign, or we're tweaking our listing presentation materials. That's the grind. And I'm going to be very specific today in identifying 7 areas of activity that we need to give attention to, that we need to grind in if we're going to be successful in this business. So, what does it take to succeed? How can we set ourselves up for success? What is the grind in real estate? Here you go. I'm going to say it's these 7 things. It's giving attention to sources, strategies, skills, systems, standards, support, and last but certainly not least, your subconscious. And these are the 7 things that I'm going to put before you this morning that you must give attention to. Even though this is not being out in front of people, this is not receiving the awards, it's not cashing the checks. These are the 7 steps that you have to go through in order to make all of those things happen. You can't just jump right into selling real estate and taking listings. You have to be prepared for those opportunities. And these are the steps of preparation, or the dull, hard work that makes all that goodness happen. Now, having said that, I find these topics very exciting. So even though we're talking about grinding it out, this is stuff that I find very fun. I've given attention to it in my career, both as a real estate agent and now as a real estate broker owner. And I have seen the benefits of paying attention to these issues, of building a solid foundation, because you can throw a small fortune at this business and put in 80 hours a week in this business and have absolutely nothing to show for it. But if you'll build a strong foundation, if you'll engage in the grind, make the sausage, then you're going to have something very appetizing to put out there for the buying and selling public. So let's get into it. First of all, sources. When we use that word at Abbey Realty, what we are describing is where your leads and closings come from. When somebody says to me, they bump into me at the office, they say, "Hey, Frank, I just got a new listing in Memorial. I'm so excited." Almost like reflexively, instinctively, what comes out of my mouth is, where did that listing lead come from? Where did that you make contact with that seller? I'm always trying to source the business. So they might say, I don't, they showed up at my open house that I did there last week. Then great. Open house is the source. Or maybe they were a referral from a friend. Great. Sphere of influence is the source. It is vitally important that we know where our business comes from, because that allows us to direct energy and effort and resources toward those sources that are actually producing business. And if you're a new agent or don't have a lot of past business that you can identify the source in, sources are still critically important to you for planning what business you're going to do going forward. You have to Identify a few sources that you're going to give attention to. Otherwise, your efforts are going to be so diffused and so diluted, so scattered and so random that you will never get anything fruitful from any one of your sources. Now, can you think of a few right now? And I'm not going to open it up for conversation unless you have a question, but I want you to identify in your mind 2, 3, 4 sources. Where do leads come from? Where do closings come from? And if you're struggling at all, I'm going to just put a few out there in front of you for consideration. Your sphere of influence, open houses, happy homeowners, frustrated homeowners, expireds and FSBOs, that type thing, aspiring homeowners, people who are renting, for example. Studies have shown that 80% of them want to own their own home. Active listings. When you get a listing, that's a source of business because you get sign calls and web leads. And Kathleen, don't worry about writing down every one of these. I see you furiously trying to get them down. I promise I will make the slides available to you today because there's a lot more to write. Referral companies where you can get leads from. Purchased leads. There's lots of people want to sell real estate agents leads, where our inboxes are full of those offers every day. Advertising. We might do billboards, magazines, newspapers, bus benches, church bulletins, that type thing. Mass media, where we go and we're interviewed on a radio program or television, or maybe we become a source for the local news network. Whenever they want to do a real estate story, we're their go-to person. They come out and say, hey, how's the real estate market? Preferred vendors. This is anybody that you do business with, and not just in real estate, but where do you get your hair cut? Who's your doctor? Who's your landscaper? Anyone that the counter person at Kentucky Fried Chicken. I mean, anybody that you spend money with, you should give them the opportunity to spend money with you. They are a source of business. And I've often told the story of how I saw my mom literally create a lead and ultimately get a closing when she was ordering her chicken at Kentucky Fried Chicken. She just handed her card across the counter, asked the manager if he needed to buy or sell a home. And he said, as a matter of fact, I just moved here and I'm looking to buy a house. So anybody we spend money with, we should see that as a reciprocal relationship. Trade shows and community events, bridal expos, parades, county fairs, festivals, community events, that type thing. Those are sources of business. And then just one more slide, a demographic farm, people who have things in common with us. That's what we mean by demographic. A demographic referral farm. And that's people who share something in common with others in the group, typically by career choice. They're financial advisors, assisted living administrators, remodelers, insurance adjusters, that type thing. Business networking groups, community service groups, websites, social media, investors, all different kinds of investors, lenders. Did you know that lenders, banks, credit unions can be sources of business for you? Absolutely. Particularly when they take back properties in foreclosure, they need people to list them for them. The federal government does this, and they look for brokerages to list their foreclosed properties. And then finally, I just put on here new home builders, which provide a wealth of opportunities for new business relationships. And I just throw all this up here to say that we are very fortunate to be in a business where we have an unlimited supply of sources of new relationships. But this can also be your undoing if you just look at this universe of opportunity and don't focus on just a narrow few so that you can create mastery within those sources. Top agents and teams have as many as 8 to 10 sources. I say as many because many have far fewer than that. You don't need 15, 20, 25 sources of business. New agents and those who are rapidly growing their business really should have no more than 3 or 4. Really go deep, pick 3 or 4 and go deep on those. And any sphere of influence alone should generate a 6-figure income for you. You layer on that online leads, open houses, a geo farm, perhaps a demographic farm, And my goodness gracious, you can support a team of 4 or 5 agents. So you don't need to chase a whole bunch of sources, narrow your focus. And in this course, 1 Year, 6 Figures, we are focusing on what I call the 4 core sources. Geo farms, or if you don't own your own home, a demo farm. So a geo or demo would be number 1, open house number 2, online leads number 3, and sphere of influence number 4. Those 4 sources are an incredibly rich source of business. And by the way, if you followed along, geo, open house, online, sphere, that's GOOS. We just need one more letter and we've spelled goose. That letter would be E, and that E stands for everything else. And I will talk about the everything else. That will be the last class that we teach in this series, because there are certain times and certain circumstances where you have some unique opportunity that you should be chasing an exotic source. You should be, is what I'm saying. But for most of us, we need to stick to the core 4, to the meat and potatoes that are going to generate the vast majority of our business. So that's what we mean by sources. When we talk about strategies, we are specifically referring to the methods and plans used within each source to extract the required number of transactions. In the business planning that we did in part 1, you identified your transaction benchmark. Perhaps it was you need to close 24 transactions in the next 12 months to fully fund your financial requirement. But then we broke that down by source. So the 24 transactions, how many are coming from Sphere? How many from open house? How many from online leads? That type of thing. And so within each of those sources, let's just take open house, for example. You then need to mate that with a corresponding strategy, because there's many different approaches to getting business from open houses. And some of these approaches are very ineffective. I can't tell you how many people who've told me, I never do open houses. Why not? Because I did 16 of them. I didn't get any business out of them. Well, I would say they had employed a particular strategy that was very ineffective. Many other agents derive a significant portion of their business from the same exact source, open house. So how do you account for the difference? It's the difference in the strategy, the methods, and the plans that they used within the source. You could apply the same thing to online leads. Most agents hate them. They say they're garbage. They use more colorful language than that to describe online leads. But I'm telling you, there is no more cost-effective way to grow a business today than through online leads. You can buy them so inexpensively, and there's an unlimited supply of them. If you use the right strategy within the online source, my goodness, you can blow up a business overnight. So I'm not teaching you strategy right now. I just want you to understand the term. We're always going to be talking about sources and strategies, sources and strategies. Source is where the business comes from. Strategy is the method and plan that we use to get the business out of that source. Okay, now let's move on to skills. Skills are simply the abilities that are required to implement your strategies at a high level. And I'll go more into that in just a moment. But keep in mind, you can have a very productive source of business identified. You can even have a proven strategy that you're working within that source of business. In other words, top producing agents have done exactly the same thing and had great results. And yet you do exactly the same thing and get miserable results. How do you explain the difference? The difference is in the soft part. The top producing agent did the same activity, but they did it with grace, and they did it with style, and they did it with confidence, because they knew what they were doing. They had practiced. They had put the time in the training room. They'd put in the time with a dialogue partner. They had practiced and practiced until they knew what to say, and they knew what to do, and they knew how to overcome that objection. Skills, contrary to to popular belief, you are not born with. Skills are abilities that you hone over time. And there's really no greater example of making the sausage than when it comes to skills, because this is the hard work that nobody sees. It's you practicing, it's you anticipating what could happen when I'm in this situation. When the buyer says uh, they want to look at 10 homes, and I show them 10 homes, and 3 of them were a perfect match for what they wanted, and they don't want to make an offer. How am I going to handle that situation? What am I going to say? And when they say, oh, we just want to keep looking, or we're not sure, or maybe something else better will come on the market next week, what am I going to say? Skills is you practicing and honing your ability to respond in those situations and proactively prevent those situations from coming. So I've just thrown on the screen a list of some possible skills that you may want to give attention to. And I'm not saying make this a to-do list. I'm just saying these are examples of the type of skills that you need to consider developing. Creating landing pages. And of course, KV Core makes that so easy. Posting Facebook ads, converting online leads, negotiating the best deals, keeping sellers reasonable, particularly in a market like this where they think they can get anything. Presenting offers, building a referral network, creating marketing pieces, soliciting testimonials, building a personal brand, building a vendor team, articulating your value proposition, cultivating builder relationships, creating trust over the phone. Oh my goodness, what value, dollar value can you put on that? Building rapport with strangers, organizing community events, promoting listings, building traffic to an open house, pricing homes to sell, putting together efficient showing schedules. You see, we could go on and on and on with skills, but I put these on the screen simply to highlight that this is not a business that we can just show up to and expect to be great at. This is a business that really requires a lifetime commitment with a continual focus on getting better. It doesn't really matter where we start, as long as every day at the end of the day, our skills are a bit sharper than they were at the beginning. We gave attention to getting better. That's what we mean by skills. Now, in terms of getting better, I want to emphasize it's not just knowing what to do. There really are no secrets in this business. What top producers do is well known to all. What makes the difference is the skill level with which they implement it. And you're going to hear a word a lot in Abbey Realty, and that word is mastery. Mastery is when you have attained the ability to implement the activities required by your strategies at world-class levels. So there's no point in just being random, like picking things off the list I just gave you and focusing on those. You need to focus on the specific strategies within your sources and say, within this strategy, what are the particular skills that I need to develop? And then really drill down on achieving world-class mastery of those specific skills. Now, don't panic about that, because in each of the source and strategy classes that we teach within this course, we're going to be identifying a list of skills that you're going to need in order to implement that strategy at world-class levels. In fact, I should have said this earlier. For all 7 of these issues, sources, strategies, skills, systems, standards, subconscious beliefs, and so forth, we're going to address every one of those issues within each source and strategy that we teach in this course. But when we get to that specific item, whether we're talking about geo-farming, demo farming, sphere of influence, and we talk about skills or subconscious beliefs, I want you to have some foundation for knowing where it fits into the scheme. And so that's why we're doing this prep class to introduce all these concepts. Do we all agree that Napoleon Dynamite is the greatest movie ever made? Yes. Robert says yes. I see you thinking that, Robert. You kind of remind me of Napoleon Dynamite, Robert, and frankly, that's why I loved it so much. I identified it, especially with the tater tots. But Napoleon Dynamite, of his many quotes, one of them is, "Girls only want boyfriends who have skills." And then he went on to identify nunchuck skills, hunting skills, computer hacking skills. Well, let me just translate that into our business. Our buyers and sellers only want to work with agents who have great skills. When they entrust us with the biggest financial purchase or sale in their life, they want to know really two things: that we are a caring, competent real estate professional. Caring means we have their best interest at heart, but competent means we have the ability, the skills to deliver on that and provide them with the end result that they're looking for. So it's not only girls who want boys with skills, but our clients want agents with skills. And we're going to lead you down that path and show you exactly what you need to develop for each of these sources and strategies. So let's move beyond that to systems. And systems is probably a word that scares people more than any other on this list, because that sounds like something that only techno geeks would identify with or understand, and we're all just normal people. Well, let me break this down for you. A system is simply a detailed checklist of how routine tasks are performed and in what order. In your business, you should identify the activities that you do consistently, that you do over and over. And that could be everything from putting a listing into the MLS to the routine that you go through every time you install a yard sign at a seller's home. Hopefully you have a routine for that. And it should involve a level and a sledgehammer and some Windex and some cloths and some touch-up paint. I mean, that should be like a ritual. I mean, and I say that with almost religious significance. I used to film myself installing a sign in front of a seller's home because I was so meticulous about the quality of that sign. It was just perfectly level and straight and solid and shiny and clean and touch up paint. I even, Michelle Eubanks will tell you about the time I took her out with me on a new listing, and I was showing her how to do the sign routine, the ritual, and do the touch-up paint on the post once it's installed, so it looks like it's brand new every single time. I didn't notice that a wind had picked up, and my truck was parked there at the curb right next to it, and I got white paint splattered all over my truck before I realized what was going on. But that's an example of a routine activity that's performed repetitively over time. I need a system for that. You need a system for that. And there's a couple reasons. And let me get into those. I'll come back to the apple pie in just a moment. Systems make your business duplicatable and delegatable. Have you ever made, for example, an apple pie or a cake and it turned out fabulous? And then somebody said, "How did you do that?" And you're like, "Well, I don't know. I started with a recipe, but then I freelanced a little bit and I threw in some of this and some of that." "Well, how much?" "Well, I don't know." So you had a great result, but you cannot duplicate it again because it's not documented. A duplicatable system means that you can get the same high result every time you perform the task. And that is critical in an efficient business. But a system also makes your business delegatable. Now, not everybody has this aspiration, but if you want to maximize your income making potential as a real estate sales professional, you need to be thinking about growing a team. Now, don't get the horse ahead of the cart. You need to maximize your personal efficiency and effectiveness first, and then you can duplicate that in other people. And the way that you do that is by delegating them the tasks, the systems, i.e., the checklists that you have already built in your business. So when you're training, for example, a new listing specialist, you can say, here are the steps that we go through on our team in preparation for a listing conversation. Here is the checklist showing all the marketing materials that we take with us. Here is a checklist of everything that we take for the front yard sign. And yes, we take that with us on our listing conversation because we're fully expecting to install that sign before we leave. A system makes your business duplicatable, get the same result every time, and delegatable. You can get the same result every time working through other people, which gives you unlimited, I call it here, infinitely expandable business opportunities. And honestly, that's the way to create wealth in this business. And I promised I'd go back to the apple pie. What I'm teaching you right now, I learned from this book, The E-Myth Revisited, and it is one of the three most influential business books I've ever read in my life, influential in my life and my business practices. And he opens up, Michael Gerber, by telling the story of this baker who can make an incredible apple pie. And yet her business is limited by the fact that she's the only one who can make the pie the way that she does. Her employees can't get the same results that she does. Well, first of all, that's a revelation that she doesn't have a system in place. She doesn't have a duplicatable, delegatable business. It all depends upon her skills. And Michael Gerber makes this point. In fact, this is the e-myth. The entrepreneurial myth is, if I'm just really good at what I do, I'm a great agent, then I can build a great agent business. I can grow a great agent team. And that is a myth, ladies and gentlemen. The only thing that allows you to get the same high quality result every time is having a system. The only thing that allows you to duplicate that through other people and be delegatable is to have a system. So I just strongly encourage you to read, and understand this book. We are doing this right now. I've taken over leadership of Jackson Henry Mortgage, and we had no systems built. So Cassidy is working with me night and day right now to build all these back-end systems to document everything that we're doing. In fact, we call it our Jackson Henry Bible. And we're going to have a source, a checklist for every activity we perform in the business, whether it's onboarding a new wholesale lender, or orienting a new employee, or uploading a loan into the system. We're going to have a documented checklist for everything. And that is part of making the sausage in a highly efficient and effective real estate sales business. I just want to make one more comment about the hamburger, and then we'll move on from this. How many of you, by nod of head, can make a better hamburger than McDonald's? That would be everybody, okay? Every one of us. How many of us make as much money every year as McDonald's does? So if we had a better hamburger, if we can do that, we all can, and we had a duplicatable system and a delegatable system, a checklist for doing that, then we could grow a hamburger business exponentially. Think of what they have done with a substandard product simply because they are a systems-driven business. You go into a McDonald's in Houston or San Antonio or Scranton, Pennsylvania, you're going to get the same burger. And it's because it's a systems-based business. So let's talk about standards for a moment. And again, I remind you, we're making the sausage. This is not the sparkly, sexy stuff that people dream about when they think about launching a career in real estate sales. This is where the rubber meets the road. When we talk about standards, we mean performance standards, your means of tracking the key metrics in your business. You need to know what's working and what's not. You need to know exactly where improvement is needed. And the only way that you can do that is by tracking inputs and outputs in your business. Sometimes, by the way, these metrics or standards are referred to as KPIs. If you're from the corporate world, key performance indicators, that's what we're talking about. So, oops, went the wrong direction. There we go. Peter Drucker said, if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. Peter Drucker is the most famous management guru in management history. So what we're talking about here is measuring our business. And that's making the sausage. Nobody wants to, but it's critically important for improvement. And then W. Edwards Deming, the guy who was responsible more than anybody else for creating the revolution in Japan after World War II, that, sorry for the switch. I was trying to go back here. For revolutionizing the Japanese industry after World War II to make it the most efficient in the world. And Deming said, without data, you're just another person with an opinion. In other words, you're guessing. What do I need to do to improve my business? Well, I'm not sure, but maybe I'll try this. With the data, with key performance standards, and your actual inputs and outputs tracked, then you're in complete charge. So in 1 year, 6 figures, we're going to track things like this. This is just one example. How many dials to get a conversation? Well, let's back up beyond even that. How about how much time do we spend in making outbound calls every day? And then how many dials to get a conversation? And then how many conversations to get an appointment? And then how many appointments to get a listing? And then how many listings to get a closing? Would you agree that having that information on every source and strategy in your business would put you in total control? It would give you the information that you need to make critical improvements? Say yes, Chelsea, I'm watching you. There we go, thank you. So let's practice here. Let's see if we can do this. Let's just say that we tracked our numbers, our standards, and we came to this conclusion that it takes us 15 minutes to make 10 dials. Let's say we're calling expireds or FSBOs, or we're doing circle calls around new listings, or we're calling into our geo farm, all kinds of people we can call. Let's say it takes 15 minutes to make 10 dials. 10 dials to get one conversation, 20 conversations to get one appointment, 5 appointments to get one listing, and 2 listings to get one closing. Now, what can be learned from this? And I am going to invite you now, if you want to, unmute yourself and tell me some takeaway, some helpful analysis you can make about your business from these numbers. Okay, let me ask you a question. How many minutes do you have to dial to get one closing? Would that be helpful information? Mm-hmm. Can you extract that from these numbers? Okay, follow with me. Look at the bottom of the screen. To get a closing, we need 2 listings. So 2 is our number. We need 5 appointments to get a listing. So that's 10. We need 20 conversations to get an appointment. 10 times 20 is 200. 10 dials to get a conversation. 200 times 10 is 2,000. 2,000 times 15 minutes. Oh, I went way beyond my math ability. That's about 30,000 minutes. Am I right? I probably should have had a calculator in front of me when I did that. I'm probably off by at least a decimal point. Let's say it was 3,000. Let's say it's 3,000 minutes of dialing to ultimately get one closing. That's about 50 hours of lead generation activity to get to a closing. So here's my first question for you. Is that an efficient source of business? Is that an efficient use of your time?
No.
If this was your only source and strategy, how many closings could you get in a month?
4 at least.
Okay, yeah, you work 50 hours a week. That's 4 closings a month. How many of you are closing 4 a month right now? Okay, most agents aren't. And but again, this is the grind. This is what if this is what it takes. Now I know 50 hours of hard lead gen is going to get me to the closing table one time. If I'm willing to put in 50 hours a week, I can close 4 a month. 8,000 average sale price. Let's see, 4 times 8, 32,000. Let's see, there's 12 months. That's between 350 and 400,000 a year. Now, now do we have a different perspective on this? That maybe 50 hours of calling would be well worth it to make 300,000 plus a year. Okay. So let's say this. Let's say that we can only put in 25 hours a week, but we still need the 4 closings a month because our financial requirement is 32,000 a month. We got to make 32,000. That's what my bills require and my aspirations demand. If I look at these numbers, how can I get that to 25 hours a week and still get the same result? Remember, this is about total control of our own business. Let me make one suggestion. What if I worked on my conversation skills? Remember, we talked about one of the skills is learning to build rapport over the phone. What if I could improve this conversion rate to 10 conversations to one appointment instead of 20? Do you see how now I have literally cut my time requirement in half? Now it doesn't take 50 hours a week. Now it takes 25 just by focusing on that one skill. You could also look at the very bottom metric, 2 listings to get 1 closing. That means I'm only selling half my listings. Now, we don't live in a perfect world. We're never going to be at 100%, but is it possible to get that to 85 or 90%? If I can sell, if I can take 2 listings, let's say 24 over the course of a year, and sell 20 of them, now I've got a 75, 80% conversion rate, and I'm going to make 300 plus at 25 hours a week. So knowing your numbers, tracking your numbers in this manner gives you the ability to identify the weak links. You know, maybe it's I'm just not putting enough time. Maybe it's I'm not making enough dials in the time. Maybe it's because I'm still using, just my old cell phone. Maybe I need to get one of those Mojo dialer headsets that can crank out 3 or 4 outbound calls at one time. And then when one person answers, it automatically hangs up on the others. Maybe I need to do something like that to use my time more efficiently. But this is what I mean by performance standards. I just got to say one more. On here, I've got 5 appointments to get 1 listing. That's a 20% conversion rate. Every single one of you should be able to at least triple that, right? You should get to an 80 to 90% conversion rate. When you go on a listing appointment, you have every expectation you are walking out of there with the listing. Your sign's going to be in the yard. You're going to be taking photographs of this happy family out there with that yard sign before you leave tonight. And then you're going to take off that coming soon rider, and you're just going to take it with for sale. And then you're going to put on a sold rider, and you're going to take them celebrating and doing a happy dance and all of that. And you're going to do all that the first night when you take the listing appointment, because you're going to tell them, no doubt, we're going to sell this home fast. And when we sell it, you're going to be packing, you're going to be busy. We're not going to have time to get together for photographs and celebrate then. So we're just going to take them all right now. And now you've got your whole arsenal of photographs at every stage of the transaction, coming soon, active on the market, and sold. You see, that's just a mindset. And if you work from systems, you have a checklist, you know exactly what to do. You're going to have confidence when you go in there on that appointment, and you can dramatically increase that conversion rate. And just by doing that, you can knock this down to 5 or 10 hours a week of outbound calls to get the same result. So knowing your numbers, having your performance standards, and tracking your results puts you in total control of your business. That's the point I want to make. Well, there it is. Knowing your numbers puts you in full control of your business. If I hadn't made that point, she made it for me. Look how confident she looks. All right, so let's talk about support. Support comes in several different forms. Tools, technology, and partners is how I like to break it down. The tools of your business, just gather. Support's gathering your tools, having your yard signs, having your marketing materials, having your open house supplies, having a tube of graphite in your open house toolkit or in your glove box. Now, somebody unmute yourself and tell me why we would have a tube of graphite with us at all times as a professional realtor.
We can
Keep the lock open if something's going on with the lock.
That's exactly right. I cannot tell you how many times I walked up to a vacant listing. Maybe it had been sitting there for 6 months, and the oil in the old lock had gotten gummy, and it was absolutely impossible to open that lock, or you break the key off in the lock. A little squirt of graphite in there, and that thing opens up like butter. So you should have a toolkit in your car at all times as a realtor, and think through all your strategies of business, your showing opportunities, the problems that could arise. I mean, my kit not only included graphite, but I had a little dust mop and a dust pan and broom. Go to hold an open house and you see a couple of dead roaches on the kitchen floor. I'm not picking them up with my hands. So you have a little kit for things like this. You have your Windex and your little microfiber towels. That's what I mean by tools. The biggest tool in your business is your marketing materials. And I cannot stress the importance of having professionally designed and printed full bleed color cardstock marketing materials, both your personal brochure, your listing marketing plan, the postcards that you send to your geo farm and your sphere of influence. Those are tools. And my philosophy has always been that the quality of your marketing materials, the quality of the service you provide, and the quality of the homes that you represent. And I would tell potential sellers that in the listing conversation. When I would show them my past marketing materials and listing flyers, which are just stunningly beautiful, I would say, this is the kind of stuff I'm going to put together for your home, because I believe, and more importantly, buyers believe, that the quality of the marketing reflects the quality of the home inside. I put some old ratty, beat up, rusty, looks like a tractor drove over a yard sign in your front yard. What are people going to think about the inside of your home? But they drive up and they see a yard sign that's perfectly level and beautiful and shiny and clean and brand new. When the headlights hit it in the middle of the night, it looks like a Martian just landed right there in the front yard. It's so bright. They're going to say, well, that must be a beautiful home. So if you'll adopt these beliefs, reflect them in your materials, and then let that come out in your dialogue and your conversation with sellers, you are walking out with that listing. Okay, so tools. Technology, this is the basic stuff, but we have to have mastery of it. The MLS, Super, Back Agent, Palm Agent, or any one of the title company apps that will enable you on the fly to calculate seller net sheets, buyer closing costs, and run different scenarios in terms of down payments for how much cash they need to bring to closing. Those things are so easy to operate, but do you have one on your phone right now? When's the last time you ran some practice calculations and then emailed the results directly to you so that you could see what your clients see? That's what I mean by mastery of the technology. And of course, the biggest chunk of that is KV Core. Having your database, customizing your website, using the lead generation tools. This is all part of support. You can't do everything by yourself. You need to leverage tools and technology to multiply your time and your impact. And then I would say, even more important than tools and technology is your partners, your personal mastermind, and a personal power team. And when I say mastermind, I'm just talking about a group of other agents who are already living the dream that you aspire to. I would think through, and they don't even have to be Abby agents. You know, it could be a Remax agent in San Angelo and a Keller Williams agent in Pearland and a Colwell Banker agent in League City, people that you've come across. Perhaps you've co-opted with them, or maybe you read an article about them in a top producer magazine. I would identify 4 or 5 people who are already experiencing the levels of success that you aspire to. And I would say, hey, would you, first of all, one-on-one, would you mind if I take you out for a cup of coffee and pick your brain? Or I'll take you out to lunch. Just love a few minutes of your time, because I aspire to be like you. People are flattered by that. And most people have a desire to give back. So have these one-on-ones, develop the relationships, and then there will come a time where you say, you know what? I would love to put you together with some of my friends in other markets, and maybe just once a month or 3 times a year, we could get together for a full day strategy session. And I did this with my personal mastermind group. We would go to the Hill Country in Austin. One year we flew to Destin and got a beach house for the weekend. We went different places, did different things over time, but my business grew exponentially from their impact. And I would always encourage you, be the dumbest person in the room. I shouldn't say dumb. Be the least experienced, least productive person in the room. That way you can learn from everybody else. And of course, you're automatically thinking, well, then what value do I bring to the group? The value that you bring is the relationships. You're the one that knows all these people and put the whole thing together. So a personal mastermind group can dramatically increase your success, accelerate it, because you're learning from people who've already figured it out. And they'll share it with you freely if they like you. And that's part of your skill of building rapport and trust with strangers. Reach out to them, coffee, lunch, and then let it grow from there. That's a personal mastermind group. And I cannot recommend it highly enough because of my own experience with it. And then I would say your personal power team. I think there are 10 key roles that all of us need to have partners with, our own personal power team: mortgage, title, inspector, photographer, handyman, painter, landscaper, plumber, electrician, and roofer. Now, there could be others on this list. You'll come across, a pool person, for example. But these are the 10 biggies. And you need to have a very close relationship with somebody in each of these categories, your go-to person. Let me just share with you, again, I can't stress this strongly enough. You need to concentrate your referrals. Don't be spreading your mortgage referrals among 3 or 4 companies or 3 or 4 loan originators and doing title at Stewart one time and Momentum another time and then Southern Title a third time. They'll all appreciate your business, but you will gain 0 loyalty from doing that. You need to find one person that you really connect with, that you're one mind with, and become their number 1 source of business. You will become indispensable to them. And you know what happens automatically? They become indispensable to you. They will do things for you that they will not do for anybody else. You're sending 10 deals a month to one title company, and then all of a sudden you need to reschedule on the 30th of the month, and they're already booked solid and they have no openings. If it's you, guess what? Somebody else is going to have to wait. They're going to put you in that spot. You need photography done this afternoon on a listing you took this morning, and a normal turnaround time is 48 to 72 hours. Let me tell you what, your photographer is going to be there this afternoon. You get that kind of loyalty and that kind of service, and it serves your clients at the highest level. And again, I used my power team as part of my listing conversation. It was part of the value that I brought to the table, that I had these kind of relationships. In fact, I'm going to bring my landscaper out at my expense and refresh your front yard. I noticed the shrubs a little overgrown. The mulch needs to a little bit refreshed. Would it be okay if I sent my landscaper over my expense and he just got everything ready in the front yard? So we've got great curb appeal. So when my photographer comes out, your home is in show condition. Okay, that's a power team. And that's how you leverage them, not just when you need a handyman or when you need a photographer, but you leverage that relationship to get more listings. So if you don't have somebody in each of these and I would put it on a flyer. This is my personal power team. That should be part of your listing conversation document. This is especially helpful when you're working with buyers. When your buyers really don't see much value in us other than being able to unlock the door and let them in. But if we can say, hey, once you move in, you're going to need some landscaping, you're going to need some painting, you're going to need some electrical work, or you're negotiating repairs, you have your go-to people. It just puts you in a great value position to sell yourself to buyers and to sellers. So that's what I mean by support: tools, technology, and partners. Now we come to the final S. This is the airy fairy part. Y'all stay with me. None of the rest matters if we don't get this right. And I'm talking about the beliefs that drive our behavior, our subconscious. Our conscious mind, the things that we are aware that we think about, represent a very small part of what actually goes on in our mind, in our beliefs, in our thinking. And it is this unseen portion that actually drives our behavior, our beliefs, and our thinking. And let me demonstrate this to you in a way that most of you will be able to relate to. As a real estate professional, you may have gone to a conference or a seminar or logged in and watched a YouTube video of a top producer and you heard some great ideas. And you're like, doggone it, that's going to change everything. That's the answer. That's what I've been looking for. And you swear to yourself you're going to go back and implement and everything's going to change. And you do make some effort, a good faith effort, but the first time you tried it doesn't work, and then the phone rings, and then the dog needs to be walked, and then life takes over and you never go back to it. Of course, you never get the same results that they got. What happened? It's not that you weren't sincere, it's that you did not have the underlying beliefs that top producer had, which enabled that top producer to maintain consistency in those behaviors over time long enough to get those results. Because our behavior will always revert back to the level of our beliefs. If you don't have the right beliefs about that activity, about the outcome, about yourself, you will not be able to sustain the activity. And I realize that was a lot, so just kind of let that sink in for a moment. Our beliefs drive our behavior. 90% of our behavior is driven by subconscious thoughts, beliefs, and habits. We don't think about brushing our teeth, driving the car. If we got a vacation coming up in a couple of weeks, we may not even be consciously thinking about it, but we'll be all tingly. We'll be excited. We'll have a little rush of adrenaline. We won't even know why. We're like, what is it? Oh, that's right. I'm going to Cancun in a couple of weeks. Okay. It's that subconscious bubbling below the surface, or the Monday morning blues. Now, I don't have this in real estate. I'm sure you don't either. Monday morning is exciting time. We got all this stuff that cranked up over the weekend, and now Monday we got to put it into place. But some people who have corporate jobs, man, they just go in Monday morning drag. And if you ask them why, they can't even tell you why. But it's because they've adopted this lifestyle, this belief that, oh gosh, I hate my job. And Monday marks the beginning of a long, long week. Our behavior, our attitudes, everything is driven by our subconscious thoughts. And don't worry, I promise it's going to get better, but I got to kind of push you a little bit harder. I got to let this sink in. Most of our beliefs about ourselves are instilled in childhood and are very difficult to identify and change. Mark Twain said it, well over 100 years ago. He said, people change, but not much. You know, you look at somebody when they're 8 years old and when they're 80 years old, probably very much the same person. I know I'm in my life, I got almost 6 decades now. I have seen that. People I went to junior high with that I still am friends with on Facebook, still the same people. Okay. So this stuff we hear in childhood really impacts us. I'm not good at math. I never get any lucky breaks. Everyone else is smarter and better looking than me. I don't make friends easily. Okay. I'll never forget one time my football coach yelled at me, Frank, you run like a herd of cows. Well, why would I remember that to this day? Well, that went deep. I thought, oh, I never thought I ran like a herd of cows, but he's the expert. I guess I do run like a herd of cows. Okay. These things that we hear in our childhood, they're formative. We don't have the ability to critically analyze them. Our subconscious hears them and accepts them as reality. And because of that, our behavior conforms to them. And then our subconscious sees our behavior and it reinforces the belief. And before you know it, we have an identity established. That's who we believe that we are. That's how it happens. Um, and if it's happened to you, here's some signs, so, some evidences of unproductive beliefs or thinking that have taken hold in your spirit. A lack of confidence when approaching anything new, like, oh gosh, I don't know about this. I'm not very good at new things. That's a sign. Consistent failure to meet your goals. If you get fired up and you get excited and you're like, man, I'm going to do this, I'm going to rock it, 6 figures my first year, 5 listings a month, and then you just consistently fall short of every one of those, there could be any number of issues causing that failure, but I can promise you the root of it, the beginning of it, goes back to your belief that you do not believe that you are a person that deserves success or is capable of being successful. And then the last thing I want to point out, because some of y'all will identify with this, is just a sense of powerlessness. Like, well, I am what I am. It is what I is. This is the hand that's been dealt me in life. And there's really nothing that I can do to change it. If you see any of those in yourself, that is a sign that you have adopted some beliefs, not purposefully, not consciously, but because of your environment. As a child, probably you took these in uncritically, and they've become part of your identity. Now, I told you I had to push you pretty hard. I promise it's about to get better. There's 3 truths about our identity that are going to be the key to changing our self-identity to something far more productive. So follow me here. Beliefs come initially from what we hear from others, what they say about us. Parents, friends, teachers, coaches, ministers, movies, music, all the input that we get typically as young people. I just mentioned what my coach said to me. You run like a herd of cows. Well, you know what? I think he was right. See how I've adopted that? I think I do run like a herd of cows. But I believe that to be true about myself. So if you hear a thud, thud, thud coming down your street, it's either a herd of cows or it's Frank. Okay. We internalize these beliefs. Those beliefs that we internalize drive our behavior. We consistently act in accordance with our core beliefs. Anything else cannot be sustained. In the example that I used earlier, where you get exposure to this top producer, this new strategy, these new ideas, you get all excited, you try to implement, you find yourself unable to, it's because you didn't adopt new beliefs that were supportive of those behaviors. And you fall back. You go back into those ruts and those routines, those mental routines, because you can only fake it for so long. And we can fake it. Any one of us can perform any behavior. We can do anything short term. And keep that in mind, because that's going to be very important. That's a key to our breakthrough. We can do anything short term. We just can't sustain it without belief support. And then finally, behavior reinforces or disrupts our beliefs. Our subconscious is constantly observing our behavior. Did you know that? You're watching yourself all the time. You are watching yourself all the time. And our subconscious, from observing our behavior, forms conclusions about what we believe from what it sees. So just for example, let's just say that you're a late riser. You know, you're not a morning person. Would that apply to anybody in this group? You have that belief about yourself. You behave in accordance with that belief. You hate getting up in the morning. You're grumpy if you have to get up early in the morning. But your subconscious is also watching you, and it sees that you're a late sleeper or you're grumpy when you get up early. And so it further entrenches that belief about yourself that, you're not a morning person. Your subconscious observes your behavior. So your beliefs drive your behavior, but then your subconscious observes the behavior and reinforces the belief. So it's this cycle or circle of reinforcement. But that's what gives us the key to breakthrough. Those three truths will show us how to reprogram our subconscious to adopt more productive beliefs. I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm not saying it's quick, but it absolutely can be done. And it starts with the same way we formed those beliefs to begin with. We have to hear affirming words. Now, I could do a whole class right on this slide right here. I'm going to try to do this as briefly as I can. But we need to think about who we want to be. If you're a person of faith, what does God say about you? That who did he make you to be? Who do you want to be? What kind of woman? What kind of man? What kind of skills? What kind of attitude? What kind of success do you want to enjoy? Write those things out and speak them aloud. Your subconscious cannot tell right from wrong, good from bad. It has to just receive what is put into it. Now it's going to verify with a behavior check. Okay. But you've got to put the input in there. It has to have something to compare to. So write out those statements. Yeah, I am a top producing agent. People like me. I'm a great rapport builder over the phone. Okay, just write down these things about yourself, perhaps related to the skills that you need to develop. I am a morning person. Oh, that's a stretch. I love waking up early in the morning. Okay, can't wait to get to that first cup of coffee and hit the phones. Okay, so you hear the words, write them down and speak them aloud. And then you act in accordance with those words. Now, I've already told you, you cannot sustain beliefs or behavior not in line with your beliefs, but I'm talking about short term changes, very small changes. So let's just say that you're trying to deal with this belief that you're not a morning person. I'm not going to tell you to get up at 5:30 every morning for the rest of your life. Okay. You might set your alarm one time and then it's over. Okay. Because your belief hasn't changed. But I am going to say you can choose a very small act, very small. A morning person, what's one thing that they do that other people don't? Well, maybe they set the coffee maker to go off at 5:30 in the morning. Or maybe they set an alarm on their phone for 5:30 in the morning. And so you set a goal to act for 3 days in a row. And the only thing you're going to do is set the coffee maker and set an alarm. I'm not even saying you have to get out of bed. You do the tiniest little act. But what's going to happen is your subconscious is going to observe that. Say, well, morning people set their coffee machine. Morning people set alarms. And if you just do that for 3 days, then you can make another small incremental change. And maybe this time you get up and you drink a cup of coffee and go back to bed. You just make little tiny changes, but every time you're reinforcing with your words and then your behavior. And that cycle now reinforces the new identity over time. And it does take time, particularly the bigger issues. The deepest issues take more time, but you absolutely can change your identity the same way it was formed in the beginning. Hear the words, act on the words in very small steps, and let your subconscious see that the words align with behavior, and the process of identity change will begin. With every source and strategy that we teach you in 1 year, 6 figures, we're going to identify the specific beliefs that you need to consciously choose in order to sustain behavior within those strategies. So you can start now on just your personal life issues. I promise you, I'll bring you the beliefs that you need for these business issues. Very exciting stuff. And now, my friends, you know how to make the sausage. It's these 7 critical preparatory activities: identifying your sources, choosing strategies within those sources, developing the skills, creating the systems, the checklists, establishing your performance standards, and then tracking your numbers, getting the tools, the technology, your personal mastermind, your personal power team in place, and then finally working on the beliefs that will allow you to sustain these behaviors over time. This is the foundation of a highly profitable long-term real estate sales business. Now, having said that, feel free to unmute yourself and talk back to me. Any part of this that doesn't make sense, or you want to go deeper on, or you have questions about, this is your turn.
Okay, Frank, I'm gonna say something. Can you
So
hear me?
I can hear you, but I can't see you. So who is this talking?
This is Angie.
Okay, Angie, fire away.
It's not at the beginning of the class, you say something that is like, it really hit me because it happened to me a couple times and I don't know what to do. I feel like I don't know what to say now. When you said, well, I show my buyers 10 houses, 3 of them are perfectly what they're looking for. It fits, with all the things that they're looking, but they say, oh, I'm going to continue, maybe something else comes in the market next week. We'll see.